Okay. So once again, if you just joined us, welcome. I'm Reverend Don Barton from CC Orlando, and I just want to thank you all for being here tonight. And as always, before we get started, we want to start by centering ourselves in prayer. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath, just to relax where you are, set your intention to be present in this moment, and join me in a prayer. Mother, Father, God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. We thank you for this time of connection, for this time of wonder, for this time of learning, for this time of inquiry, for this time of knowing that we are all one, that we are all connected in your awareness, in your presence, in your knowingness, that we are by nature divine, and we see and recognize that divinity in ourselves, in each other, and in the world. And we give thanks for knowing that there really is only one power and one presence throughout this universe, God the good. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Don.
So I just want to welcome everybody tonight and just give you a little housekeeping before we get started so that you know what's going to happen tonight. Our schedule for this series this spring or winter, depending on your part of the world, is tonight we'll be doing around chapters 9 and 10, dealing with denials and affirmations. Next week, March 20th, will be chapters 5, 7, 8, and 10. The 27th will be the 3rd, 4th, and 10th. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. April 3rd will be chapters 5, 6, 7, and 11. And we'll give you all that information each week so you know what we'll be doing the next week. But we're not going to do the whole book. We're not going to necessarily do it in order, and we're going to try to make it as understandable as possible for you. The class is going to be recorded. There are people who can't attend, and some of you might not be able to make each week's class. So we want to record it and have it available for you. That being said, if there's something that comes up for you, something that you want to talk about or ask questions about or share with a group, that we're willing to pause the recording at any time to let you speak to all of us in confidence, to share something, to be vulnerable, and then we'll pick up the recording when you're done speaking. So please feel free to ask for that, and don't hold back if you're afraid of saying something that will be recorded, because we can pause it as many times as we need to support what's going on. That being said, these are classes are always, we go by Vegas rules. So whatever happens in the class stays in the class. If someone shares something personal or something emotional or something where they're being vulnerable, we're not here to fix or to answer. We're here to lovingly listen and hold space if something comes up for somebody. Yeah, so just be conscious of that. If you have questions and you want to participate, which we hope each and every one of you will feel comfortable to do, that you have a couple options. One is to raise your hand. If you're not really familiar with Zoom, if you put your cursor down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see some icons pop up along the bottom of the black screen. And there's one that's called reactions. It's a little smiley face with a plus sign on its forehead. If you click on that, there's a button that says raise hand. If you click on that, a little hand will show up in the corner of your screen, about like there. There you go. Jim's got his on. And then you can lower it after you ask the question, and we can see you. Or in the middle of your screen at the bottom, there's a chat box. You can put your question in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that, and we can make sure that your questions are answered and you're heard. So if you have any questions, just screech out. And if I'm missing everything, feel free to turn on your mic momentarily and just let us know I have a question, and we'll get to you. This is a class that, like normal classes that we offer in Unity, it's offered on a love offering basis. And because we have so many different churches here, I just want to let you all know that the way we handled this last class and worked out real well is that at the end of the class, I'll remind you to make a love offering on the class, and you just tithe to your home church. So wherever you and however you normally tithe to your home church, whether you have your own donate buttons on your apps or your websites, I'll remind you to go there and do that. For us at CC Orlando, we can donate online, and we have a choice of funds, and one of the funds is classes and workshops, so that we know that it has to do with one of our classes. So that's available too. So however you normally tithe to your church, we want to encourage you to do that at the end of each week. So that being said, I just want to welcome all the ministries that are here tonight. We have our participating ministries that we know for sure of are Unity of Daytona Beach, the Central Florida Center for Spiritual Living, Unity of Port St. Lucie, Unity of Palm Harbor, Unity of Central Minnesota, and of course, CCU Orlando, where I'm from. So tonight we will be having a panel discussion, and our ministers that are here tonight are Reverend Teresa Curry from the Unity of Daytona Beach. We've got Reverend Kathy Beasley from the Center for Spiritual Living. Reverend Tracy Quillen is here from Unity of Palm Harbor. Reverend Jim Ernston is here from Unity of Central Minnesota. Reverend Maggie Alderman is here from CCU Orlando. And I don't see Reverend Linda. She may come in from Unity of Port St. Lucie, Reverend Linda Mashek, or Mashesek. So those are our ministers that are here. We're going to be doing this class, this book, as kind of like a panel discussion. So I'll be facilitating. I've got some questions that I'm going to put forth to our ministers, and they're each going to take a stab at answering them and their interpretation of what's going on in this book and how we can apply it in our lives. And then I will open it up for all of you at any time to ask questions, to bring forth what you need, for clarification or anything that's going on. That's a lot of information in a short amount of time. Has anybody got any questions before we get started? All right. Well, I'm going to give me just a moment because I just lost my list of questions. There we go. All right, Unity ministers, I hope you are ready. You can either jump in as I ask the questions, or I will just call on you individually. And so again, I said we were starting this week with chapters 9 and 10, which have a lot to do with denials and affirmations. However, we've already had a comment early on about how hard this book is to comprehend and how it is. It's written by Charles, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore. So he's kind of wordy, he's kind of heady, he's kind of difficult to read. So we want to start off by just getting an overview from each one of the ministers. And my question to you each is, what do you see as the main point, the main theme, the overriding concept of Keep a True Lent? I mean, what is it that you see as Charles's purpose for this book? What does he want us to get out of it? All right, Tracy, your hand's up. You want to go first?
So not used to raising my hand, I just jump in. So yeah. I think like
ministers
most
can
things,
just jump in whenever.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Let me put my hand down. We're back in school again. Okay. So to me, it's what Charles always wants to do. He wants us to find that right and perfect message that brings us closer to the God that we all understand. And it's a personal journey. It's very much a personal journey, and that we go into that still, quiet space and allow the messages to come through to us. And of course, as we start getting into this, there was a delightful person who's on here with us tonight who made a comment after my Sunday service. Lent doesn't have to be, quote, Christian. Lent, for many of us, is about releasing that which no longer serves us so we can make room for the new. So that's a very basic synopsis for me. And it's very different that I didn't grow up in a church that really did Lent. So I'm actually getting more Lent and unity. And I like releasing things that don't serve us, like guilt and shame and blame and feeling bad about ourselves and feeling less than, and then moving into those things that we really understand we are the expression of the divine, and to give ourselves permission to be that in our fullness.
Thank you. Very good. Teresa?
Yes, Thank you, Reverend Tracy. I agree 100%. And what I wrote down, Don, I thought it was perfect, that song that you were playing for us. And I thought, yes, that's the theme of all of this. You know, I am already enough. And I liked where it said the I am. I'm taking that from the title of that song, but that our I am, we are already enough. So I think for me, this is just the reminder. It's like this, the great recipe for success, if you will. Of that, following these spiritual practices of prayer and communing with our God, that personal God within us, and you know, taking that, also that discipline of fasting for the mind and the body, just as Reverend Tracy said, you know, all that release of what's no longer serving us, and that doing that, it is a guarantee that we will have that experience of a greater awareness of that presence of the divine within each of us. So I just thought, you know, it's like the perfect recipe, right? So,
Yep.
you know, as if it were, keep your mind stayed on God, so to speak.
Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. Don, you're right in your comment that this was a hard read. It's kind of like chewing concrete. And I didn't grow up in a setting with Lent. I didn't discover Lent until I went to seminary. And so in reading this again, you know, one of the things about Unity books is sometimes is really every time you return to it, you're a different soul. You're at a different juncture on your journey. So you see stuff in it that you never saw before. So I have an appreciation for reading this out of order because it's like a scavenger hunt. Where is that thing? But I think the one of the purposes that he wrote is to remind us of the power of choice, because we get to choose whether we're going to hold on to the thing that's not serving our lives just because we've had it for a really long time, or we get to choose to release those things and have a better, deeper, greater experience of ourselves in this great call and response that we call life. So whether we're doing it through fasting or praying, or whether we're looking at our existence and deciding whether or not we're going to give up something, it all, every lesson in Unity always brings us back to the self. And so it's that power of choice that we get to experience in our own spiritual awakening and also our own spiritual awareness. So I think that it's like a signpost that says, hey, look over there, but over there is really in here.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for sure. Definitely. Jim?
Yeah, you know, Lent was something that I discovered later in my life. The religion of my youth, we did not really focus on that whatsoever. So the first time that I was aware of Lent was in junior high school, actually, junior high school. And what happened was I was in first period, one of my first classes, and it was Ash Wednesday. And all the cool kids started showing up with a little ash on their forehead. And I had to ask what it was, and they explained it to me. These were the Catholic kids that showed up at school. And to this day, I honor that with them. Their ability to see that that 40 days of release and one of them explained it to me. It was almost as if it was a they were exercising that release muscle. So that they were practicing that ability to let go, was the way that one guy explained it to me. And I honor that. I didn't know what they were doing at first, but yeah, I honor that.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'll get in there. So, hi, everybody. And thank you for your points from the previous answers. I was first exposed, like Jim, I was raised on the border of El Paso and Juarez, Mexico. And so really heavy Catholic population there. And so I felt really left out. Like, why am I not being smudged? And I don't understand. But I didn't ever ask ironically, I just accepted it as something that was going on within a culture of this community. And then I was given Keep a True Lent in 2016 by my dad for Valentine's Day. Like, what a great gift. Thanks. And I started to really get into it when I was in seminary and have all these little tags, because what I realized, and what I think the purpose that was created, Keep a True Lent, not that Charles sit down and pounded it out, but the sections of his talks and lectures compiled into this lesson ended up being a blueprint of manifestation, a blueprint for connection to our highest self. And it's one that I know he's chewy. Charles and I have a love relationship, because I too live in my head. But it's something that he's just asking us to try in this period that unifies us within other religions and other practices, is just to try for 40 days to see if we can commit to letting go, to laying hold, to activating our powers within, to recognizing where we need to lay boundaries in order to attain that which we seek to become. And it is kind of out of order, and it works for us in the ways that it works. Sometimes we need to focus on denials and affirmation. Sometimes we need to stimulate a power within. Sometimes we just need to let go before we can start to claim. But if we put all of these pieces in order in the ways that work for us, then we have the blueprint of practice to return to at a time outside of Lent, when we are striving to achieve, to become, to manifest something with intention in our life. So besides just the wonderful little quips of brilliance that are populated throughout this book, that's where my great appreciation came for it. So that the time that we just try, and whatever we're successful in, we can come back to and try again. And that is one of the gifts in new thoughts, is we can always claim a new and different thought in our soul's growth.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Very good. Great concepts from everybody. And some of you started to talk about your initial ideas of Lent, or your initial understandings. And Charles Fillmore in this book says what his description of Lent is, because Lent's all wrapped around fasting. That's the big thing you do in Lent. Everybody fasts from something. I was raised Catholic, so I had to give up something like chocolate or soda, or something that you enjoyed as a sense of self-penance or something. But he says it's not that at all. He describes it as fast from unworthy thought, from criticism and condemnation, fasting from false beliefs and sickness and weakness, from false beliefs and lack and limitation. Fasting is from the belief that men or nations can stand in the way of God's goodwill for man. That's some pretty powerful thing. So how does this tie into all of yours idea of Lent? Why or why not? Is this something new? Does it coincide with what you saw as Lent? And either a prior Lent practice or current Lent practice? How does this tie into your idea of Lent? And if anyone else wants to join in that conversation, I would love to hear from anyone also.
Maybe we can go in reverse, and I'll start.
Wow.
And then we'll go to Jim, and then we'll go to Kathy. And just kidding. So yes, and it is, sensory satisfactions, those things that we give up in the traditional, letter of the law versus the spirit of the law, which Charles talks about in the introduction of this book. And I do take that challenge, and sometimes it's been inadvertent. It's just the season. It's just the season. And all of a sudden, I just don't feel like eating meat, or I feel like I don't need something else that may not be for my physical highest good. And what I've come to find is that draws my attention to how much soda I might drink, or how much meat I really include in my diet, or fill in the blank for any of us. And the same goes for the pattern of thought. If nothing else, this period of time, these 40 days, paying attention to our thoughts is something that is a worthy practice. If you don't give up anything, if you don't lay hold to anything, and if you don't aspire to produce anything, just the dedication of paying attention to our thoughts. I find how often I might slip into the ditches of can't, shouldn't, wouldn't, lack, fear, and all of those are the thoughts that Fillmore points to us as the challenge of giving up. And in, releasing from one hand and then claiming a higher vibration, claiming a higher thought. So that's my practice during this season, is really just the self-inquiry, watching my own behaviors.
Nice, great, thank you.
Well, let me just jump on in here. I'll do the reverse order thing. That's fine with me. The idea for me of fasting, and this is one of the things that I did in the religion of my youth. Fasting was an important thing, but coming to New Thought, coming to the Unity movement, fasting in terms of not necessarily just giving up of food for a period of time, and be it Ramadan or be it whatever that is practiced out there, but the idea within Unity of this fasting from thought, from negative thoughts or whatever it is, the idea of fasting to me is a discovery. It's a discovery process. It's an awareness within me. And like you mentioned, if it was chocolate within that 40 days of Lent that you were giving up, or it was candy, or it was soda pop, or whatever it was, that this act of fasting brought an awareness into me. It helped me realize how much, and maybe control isn't the right word, but how much I really do have agency over things within my own life. That consciousness that is brought into my awareness, I think is the most important thing for me in terms of fasting. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
I'll play the reverse order.
You're in the middle, Kathy, so you're stuck either way.
I know, right? Yeah, I'll take reverse order for $25. When I think about this, I tell you, talking about it is so much more helpful than sitting down with your cup of sweet tea and you're going to try to keep a true Lent. A few years ago, I had what my friends and family and I refer to as angry Lent, because I love me some candy, and I decided it was a good idea to give up candy. They decided it was a good idea that I shall live on an island alone if I'm giving up candy. I was less than friendly. But what I came to understand from that experience was that it's like an invitation to lay it all down. Whatever it is, just lay it down, but to also stand in the tension of the inquiry of who am I without that? And to really enter into that conversation, knowing that I am not less than because I gave up something. I mean, that's like me being less than because I lost some weight. I want to try that. But it's this idea of really looking at who are we becoming? And when we give up something, it's almost like swiping right. And then now you can see more of what is. And it's what is within us. So I've learned to take the blessed invitation of doing that. And I like how so many of us come to it not from a historical practice of Lent. So we're bringing to it all the experiences that we have. And one of the things that when I was looking up that particular quote, Don, that you read, was in the traditional religious setting, there are some rules and some ways in which Lent occurs. It follows a pattern. And what I think Charles is saying is that there's more to it than the pattern. We get caught up in the rules of it and not ever really get a chance to stand at the feet of the spirit of it and allow it to be more, and also see the more that is us. I'll land my point right there because I could talk about this one for a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and everyone else. So I'll share this about, I was raised in a traditional background, grew up Catholic, so Lent was a big thing for us. But the big difference that I love about what Charles is saying on Keep a True Lent versus what I was brought up with traditionally is my perception traditionally is that Lent was about suffering. I had, that it was punitive. There was something to suffer through, and somehow suffering was going to get me some extra holy points somehow along the way. Don't anybody who was raised Catholic go, we'd run around saying, oh, on Friday, because I went to Catholic high school also, we'd run around saying, oh, I fasted. I only had a cheese sandwich for lunch. Because we gave up meat, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone who does those sort of practices either. I'm just saying, for me, the practice that what Charles speaks of is so much richer for me. To me, this all speaks to our spiritual empowerment of us knowing the truth of who we are and living from that place and realizing that we absolutely, he speaks of it throughout there, that we absolutely can have dominion, and I get to make that choice. Where am I going to place my thoughts? And I said on Sunday about using that acronym for Lent of letting go of every negative thought. And it's a direction to move towards, right? But all of this is raising our awareness, like we've already all said. So I think it's just a beautiful time where we focus our attention this time of the year when we speak about Lent, but it's certainly the practice throughout life, isn't it? Really?
Yes.
That's what I think. And then I just, on that one point that you put in here, Don, where it said, asking about that, could the belief of men or nations can stand in the way of God's good will for man? Well, of course, I believe, absolutely not. God, the good, omnipotent, in that absolute good, always pouring forth to us. And it is only our choice to receive or not. Do we go to that fountain of blessings with our thimble or our wash tub? So absolutely nothing stands in the way of God's good except
us.
that long journey between the ears, So thank you for letting me share.
Sure. Thank you. Tracy?
Okay, I so want that as a topic, a thimble or a wash tub. That was good. That's good. I want to piggyback on something that Jim said, because I think this is true. And I think, Tracy, you hit it too. He was talking about in the fasting process, what was coming through to me is us building a new spiritual muscle. Sometimes tension is good. Sometimes tension builds a stronger understanding for ourselves. And I was looking specifically at something I wrote down in chapter 9. Now that your identity is mind, as invisible, unconditioned substance is made clear to you, these surrounding delusions are cleared away. All authority hath been given unto me in heaven and earth. And I think that's what we were all saying to some extent, that when I am disciplining my thoughts, watching where my thoughts are going, because I'm creating in a healthy sense and sometimes in a not so healthy sense. But someone mentioned dominion, and then this one, all authority hath been given unto me in heaven and on earth. Well, we know heaven is what we make it right here today. This might be our earthly field as spiritual beings, but that's my authority. That's my power to think about the words that I am saying, to think the thoughts I'm thinking and moving them into a divine expression. And I'm responsible for that. I think unity plays a big piece on that. And then I just have to piggyback a little tiny thing. In 10th grade, I remember fish on Fridays, and I hate fish. I didn't eat on Fridays. I don't know why those Catholics had to go without any meat. I don't understand.
Well, as a Catholic and living in the Midwest, we had really bad fish. not like you do at the seashores. So it was not a good Friday. It was not a happy day for me either. So thank you. It occurred to me as each one of you were talking that almost every one of you used the word awareness. And awareness, as we know in all aspects of our lives, is the first step in change. And Lent and Easter is the season of transformation. So it was just amazing that as you go through Charles's work, he inadvertently brings us all to this awareness concept of being aware of our thoughts, of our actions, of what we're doing, of our choices, and where it's going to take us to do the transformative work that brings us to an Easter Sunday. So that was very enlightening for me that each one of you hit on that specific word, as a matter of fact. Anybody want to add their take on what Charles said about fasting from unworthy or bad or negative thinking and how it ties into their Lent experience? Want to give anybody else a chance to share if they want to, or ask questions? Okay, good. So what we're talking about here is this awareness, this choosing our thoughts, this making changes in our lives, which brings us to the topics of denials and affirmations, because it's actually tools that the Fillmores describe on how to actually do that, how to be aware of your thoughts and how to change them through the use of denials and affirmations. And while some of us have been into unity for a while, we all have our own ideas of what those terms mean. And people who are new to unity still might not have a clear understanding of exactly what we're talking about here by using denials and affirmations. So I want to turn our conversation in that direction and ask our ministers to answer that question. What is a denial to you? How would you define a denial? And then do you have any suggestions or examples on how to use them effectively? That's my first question, kind of a two-part question around denials. How do you define them and how do you use them? And I'm going to do something different. I'll skip to the middle and ask Reverend Kathy Beasley to go first.
Woo, woo. All right.
There she is.
So one of the things y'all learn about me is I grew up in the country, and when we have a particular way that we speak, and I think it's a rule that we try to figure out how many y'all we can put in one sentence. So for me, y'all, a denial is a null. It is using the power of my word, my thought, and my deed in a way that says, no, not that. Mm-hmm. And I treat life like it's a buffet. It's a lot of stuff over there, and I can take what I want. I can say yes to some stuff, and I can say no to some stuff, and I can act like some other stuff is in there right now. But for me, a denial is that it's a spiritual no. And so I wondered, for a moment, what is the unity definition of a denial? And it really is, it's the erasing from consciousness that space of false belief. Mm-hmm. So it's those things that come at you that aren't true. And that those things are not from within you. And taking that moment to use the power of your word. I think it's in the Gospel of Matthew. Let your yes be yes, your no be a no. If it does not fit, I'm out. No, not doing that, not being that, not saying that. I mean, I turn into a 6-year-old. No. So for me, that's what a denial is. It's a hard pass on that thing that I know is not true.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in?
Can I say something about that no? Because I also heard it just clicked with the last thing you said, like that 6-year-old says no. And I thought, how hard is it for us as adults when we are overtired, when our plates are more than full and we can't say no? Mm-hmm. Like we feel obligated. So there's almost a self-love, a self-acceptance, a self-preservation, a self-acknowledgement that when we are healthy and we say no, we're not giving over our power to something else. Mm-hmm. We're standing in our power and declaring what our truth is. So I just love that little 6-year-old. Nope. And I've done things like before I was a minister, I am not joining the board. No, Gilligan, no, And guess who joins the board? But it's like, when our plates are too full, when do we acknowledge ourselves in that healthy realm and say no, and not to feel bad about it, and don't even have to explain it? I went through counseling after divorce. You don't have to explain it. It's just no. So I do want to share something, because you asked about an example, and I found this, I think it's out of print almost, Divine Remedies, because I am starting to explore. The Fillmores did hands-on healing, and I want to know what they did. So for instance, I'm just going to give you something personal. I do have some corns on my feet. So this in the Divine Remedies says, in healing corns and bunions, wear shoes that permit your feet to feel comfortable, duh, and that give your toes plenty of room, duh, duh. But here's the words. There are no hard places in my life, for I do not believe in hard conditions. There's your denial. My feet gladly express the divine perfection of the life and intelligence of spirit, which permeates every cell of my organism. Denial should be followed by an affirmation. That was that. The spirit of love and wisdom adjusts all of my affairs and fills my life with peace, joy, and harmony. That does not have to be about bunions. That is an amen.
Mhm. Exactly. Very true. Thank you.
I'll share. Thank you all. I say that the denial is the great no power. I love that. So it is, I believe, the great no power. And I also thought with Kathy, when you shared that, I thought, oh, the wisdom of the child, that their yes can be yes and their no can be no. They don't have all that wavering, people pleasing, shoulds attached to all of their behavior, how we can learn from them, right? But I also think that the essence of that denial, or these denials, and I also believe that it's very empowering, which obviously all this spiritual work is, but I think no can get a bad rap, as if it's like something negative, it can have that connotation to it, where I believe that this is very empowering, and it's, to thine own self be true. But also in this denial, I think it's really important to, it's not about being Pollyanna in any way. But one of my favorites that I use is that this too, whatever the two is, this too has no power over me. And going back to that place where we get to stand in the truth of ourselves, our I am consciousness, knowing that we're Christed beings. And so I like the principle to me of this is that I'm denying the power that the situation can have over me. I'm not running around saying, oh no, this isn't happening. But I'm saying that it does not have power over me, which takes us back to all that dominion that we're in, authority that we spoke about earlier. So this too has no power over me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that idea that it has no power over me. And that's what I use whenever I use the combination of denials and affirmations in my life as well. But as I was doing some cross-referencing in studying Keep a True Lent, I stumbled on Charles Fillmore in the 12 Powers, and I'm just going to read two sentences and think about this in terms of co-creation as well. So co-creation kind of filters into this, and of course this is turn of the century language, so bear with me. He says, what humans form that is evil, they must unform before they can take the coveted steps up the mountain of the ideal. Here enters the factor that dissolves the structures that no longer are useful. And a couple things came to me. It is that he's telling us that we have co-created this thing within our lives that we're now denying has power over us. So we're using that creative power to deny it. It's not happening to us, but it just doesn't have that power over us. The other thing that he says is that we must deny it before we can take that step up the mountain. So he's instructing us that this is the first step we take as we're climbing up that ideal of release for us as well. So I love the imagery of up the mountain toward that ideal. So yeah, that was Charles Fillmore in 12 Powers of Mankind.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we have to remove the block out of our way. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Exactly. Maggie?
I like Myrtle and what she has defined as a denial is sweeping clear. And when I first grasped the concept of what a denial is and why we use it, I took the image from Reverend E.J. Niles when I was a teenager of all of like an open field that is scattered with pollution, and the pollution are contents of our mind, all of the things that we give credit to: fear, worry, doubt, what if, yeah, but, what about, then what? Those clutter up the field. How do you plant something when you have all that garbage that is in the way? You may successfully get a seed in the ground, but how will it come up if it has to not only push through the dirt and the soil, but also beyond all of the garbage? And so she asked that we consider the use of our energy appropriately. So in tandem with Myrtle's definition of sweeping clear, it is, taking accountability. And I love what Teresa said. It is not denying that something is happening. It is recognizing and owning that it's happening and identifying our place in it. Mm-hmm. So yes, there is stress in my life. Yes, I have bills that are due. Yes, I have a diagnosis that I don't want to face. Yes, fill in the blank. We all have different challenges, and honoring that that's what's going on. But what are we planting in the midst of that? What are we attempting to create in that storm? My dog thinks this is really, insightful information. Moxie Miyagi, sorry. So it's sweeping clear and then planting something new. And with that, I'm going to be quiet because Moxie's singing the song of his people. Sorry.
Right, thank you. No, that's great. Thank you. That's wonderful. And the only thing I wanted to add to that is that that denials can be something big. They can be something life-changing. They can be something from a great high level of awareness. But Charles Fillmore also says they can be just simple statements like, I don't believe that anymore. It's just the simple awareness that you've realized something you've thought or followed or agreed to in your past no longer holds true. Something that someone has told you no longer passes the muster of your spiritual consciousness. And you simply are aware and can say, I don't believe that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to go there. I don't want to think about that anymore. I choose something different. It can be a simple awareness as along with something that is life-changing for you, and not a one-time fix. It's a multifaceted, often repeated denial to change those thought platforms and patterns in your brain.
So hey, Don, can I say something on that? Because you just spurred another thought. Is that, back to the first question about what Lent is and the suffering and the doing without and, all of that. Lent is also a really awesome time. It is the time of giving up, yes, but in order to lay hold of what is next and new for us. And so the process of reminding ourselves through denials, like, I am not that, that's my repeated affirmation or denial. I am not that any longer. I am this. I am growing into this. I am claiming my good, or whatnot is it takes 28 days to develop a habit. So by 40 days, we've really got it down. And don't let the old neuro pathway of our mind carry us to the place of who or what we once were in a past version of ourselves. We've journeyed and we've grown and we know better, we do better, and we struggle and we let go and we claim higher and higher elevated consciousness that turns in quality of life, that turns into higher quality of health and. So thank you for what you said, and Moxie stopped singing, so I could finish my thought.
Great. Thank you.
So
Thank you
Don,
for that.
something that triggered, not triggered, but something that
Mhm.
opened another door when you were talking, and also a little bit of Maggie's, that generational sin, that generational error thinking, that
Mhm.
I grew up in the South, my mother grew up in the South. There's some things about the South that so need to change, and not just the South. But I mean, over time, Charles said, the things that I'm telling you, if they don't make sense to you, go find it out to be your own truth. So
Mhm.
that, to me, I repeat that in front of our congregation a lot. And as I begin to heal things for me, I believe it heals generations in the past.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions about denials before I have from anybody? Comments? Yes.
Don, I
Lisa.
just wanted to share too that yes, the spoken word of the denial I think is so powerful, but also too he makes mention of the fact of just as well as withdrawing your attention from whatever it is. So even if you don't have the opportunity to speak it for whatever the reason might be in that very moment, but simply withdraw your attention from it, because it all happens in consciousness.
Exactly. Yep. Yep, for sure. So just a final comment on denials that I want to just throw out there to our expert panelists. Some of you kind of touched on it. I just want to know if you have any thoughts that you wanted to add on what do you see as the real power that's encompassed in using denials?
I'll try that one. For me, a denial is like a broom. I can move things out of the way with it and create that space of yes. But it's like Jim talked about, there's some things you have to remove before you can head up the mountain. It's kind of like going through the airport. There's some stuff you can't take with you that you got to leave behind or put in your check bag versus your carry-on bag. And so for me, that denial, I guess it becomes TSA in that metaphor. But anyway, I think that denial is the thing that moves everything out of our way that doesn't serve us and support us in the life that we are trying to live in that moment.
Very good. Yep. So true.
I feel like it's ownership. So, like Kathy talked about earlier, is, everything in unity is self-actualization. What is our participation with spirit? So to release is, and to look at the denials is to look at what we're harboring, what we're holding on to, and we're co-creating out of what we're holding on to. So it's creating that space and realizing that we have the power within ourselves at any given time to courageously face the things that we hold in our being. It is quite empowering. And I talk a lot about spiritual bypassing, and unity, we want to just jump to the affirmative. We just want to be like, everything's good. Everything's great. God is good all the time. Everything's wonderful. And, but the human aspect of, but I'm living with my feet on the earth here and I'm breathing in and out in this body. What am I holding? And I'm just as empowered to let go of that, to see that it's in my basket, it's in my pockets, I'm carrying it around with me, and reclaim our power to say, no more. That's, it's very empowering for me. So you asked earlier for an example. The other night I couldn't sleep. I was, dead tired. My eyes were burning, my head hurt, and I still couldn't sleep. So instead of, wrestling with the angels and tossing and turning, it was like, I just turned my light on and I sat up, and it was like, okay, what is bothering me? Let's run the list out, and it's kids, it's college tuition, it's things in the ministry, it's health, it's family, it's, blah, 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 blah. And seeing it, I could say, thank you. Thank you so much for all of the activity in my life. And now I'm going to shelve this and allow for rest. Acknowledge and allow. So that's another way that I accept, or I process denials and an affirmation. acknowledge, accept, our
Yeah.
highest good. And all of a sudden it was on paper. I could see it, I could process it, I could release it and turn the light off and get 4 hours of sleep. So think of it that way, maybe might help.
Yeah. Great. Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of occurred to me when y'all were talking about, see, Kathy, I'm going to use y'all all too. Y'all were talking about of empowerment, and what correlates to that for me is then ownership, spiritual ownership, that not only are you empowered with your denials and taking power, but it's also a step of your ownership of your spiritual journey and your spiritual life and your spiritual awareness, and saying, I'm aware of this, I'm taking ownership of it, and I'm empowering myself to stop something that I don't want anymore, that I don't believe in anymore, that I don't want in my life anymore, to move out of my life anymore. So there's that ownership component too that I think is real important with denials, for sure.
Mhm.
Any
Hey, Don,
questions?
let me jump in here really
Uh-huh.
quick with the real power of using denial. For me, I have a visual that I use as well. And denials for me, so I think Maggie talked about that idea of shortcutting to affirmations. And I really believe in the denial, but we don't want to do denials over and over and over and over and dwell on them. Absolutely not. But the visual in my mind is that denial, that thing that no longer serves us, is like a box. I'm moving out of an apartment. This is a box that's sitting in the middle of the room. And if I don't move that box out of the way, I'm going to trip over it over and over again. So the denial for me is picking up the box, acknowledging it, and then moving it or putting it in the dumpster or whatever it is. Doing it once, getting it out of the way, and then I'm focused on my co-creation and knowing what is true, which is my affirmation. So that's my visual. I'm picking up the box and just moving it out of the way so I don't trip over it over and over again, or have to walk around it.
Right. Yeah. I love visuals. I'm a very visual person. So my mind, of course, when you said there's a box in the middle of the room, in my mind, I blew it up. I just detonated the whole thing. I blew it to smithereens as opposed to move it out of the way.
Yes.
I thought we're unity people, so we're not going to stay in a box anyways. It's okay. Those for kitty cats. But I was thinking of out, damn spot. I don't actually do a lot of denial work. It's not spiritual bypassing. But once I'm creating an affirmation, there's a reason I'm creating an affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've done some work somewhere that I don't want to give that belief any more power. So the affirmation is going to be my shift. Because who just said we don't want to do a lot of over and over and over denials? Because then we're giving the denial power.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that.
Right. Great. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments? So here's a question. So with what all of you said, do you think that we practice denial every day to become more aware? Do I think we do? No. Do I think we should? Probably. Thoughts? Anybody else? Let me read that again. Do you think that we practice denial every day to become more aware?
I think that by practicing, oh, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to say, it may not be the kind of traditional, I give no power to, but it could be in a different a way of verbalizing, or just taking your thoughts away from a process you don't want to be involved in. Like, I love when Maggie said she wasn't sleeping and she said, you know what? What's up? Like, let's look at it. What's up for me? And to go through that process, that's, to me, is very self-aware and spiritually aware.
Yeah, thank you. Maggie?
I think that by practicing denials, we become aware, which is essentially, what we're talking about in the releasing process of Lent, is there is something every day. And if any of you don't have something every day that you could deny has power over you, please call me, because I want to be your friend and I want to know how you do that. But every day, there's something every day that we are overcoming, or asked to revisit, or asked to let go of, or asked to deny, and I mean, we're in a time where we're in an endemic stage now, they're calling it, of COVID. There's a lot of fear coming. I mean, we're awkward. We haven't been around each other. We haven't had much social settings. We've been separated quickly with a life-threatening illness. And now we're being invited to come back out. So I would venture to guess that some modicum of fear is in our realm, our sphere, every one of us every day. And if we can recognize what that is, you may not have to deny the same fear every day, but there is something that crops up that wants to tip us this way into the ditch of thinking that we have the ability to build awareness around if we'll simply acknowledge it and then deny the power it has to influence our level of consciousness.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, for me, what Maggie's saying it is perfect, because it's an identification of that thing. And if I don't pause to identify what I want to let go of, if I don't do the work to identify what that thing is, I'm going to unconsciously trip over it over and over again.
Right.
So it's not that I'm repeating the denial, because once I identify it, to me, that's the work. So I don't use the denial once a day, every hour, but it is in the identification process.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Teresa, do you want to add something?
Yes, I was just going to say, I think, obviously from this work that we're all doing here together, I think it's just going to, again, raise our awareness actually of how much of this we are already doing every day. I think I have the tendency to agree there with what Maggie was saying, because I think it's happening, whether we're like saying, this too has no power over me. But am I going to plop myself in front of the TV and watch the news, all the time? Am I going to focus on, the higher aspects of life, the higher vibrations of things? Yes. I'm going to notice how I'm feeling about certain things, like Maggie was saying, and then I'm going to go, decide in those moments, where am I going to focus my attention? So I think it also goes to whether I'm actually verbally saying a denial. I think we're going to realize that we're doing it more than we think.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, I was looking at the question and just thinking about this wonderful weird thing that I call my life. And I have not caught myself lately saying, I'll be right back, y'all. I'm getting ready to go deny some stuff so that I can become aware. But what I think happens is that practice of denial, the outcome of that, the gift of that is awareness, a deeper, greater awareness of what is in the moment. And I love the box in the middle of the room and blowing it up and things like that, because once you get it out of the way, you can see clearly because the thing is gone. And so for me, I think that is the practice of denial is a way of kind of clearing the space. If I can go do that, then I know that it's like I take the dog outside. I think he's trained me or I've trained him. But he goes outside, he gets a treat. And so if I deny some things that really are not true, have no power over me, I get some awareness. So it's creating that sort of energy in your life.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, any final thoughts on that from anybody or questions before we move on? Okay, so we'll kind of circle around to the same type question for affirmations. So I'll propose kind of the same question I did for denials. Is how do you define an affirmation, and do you have any suggestions or examples on how to use them effectively? How do you define an affirmation and how do you use them effectively? And I've absolutely lost track of whose turn it is. Who wants to jump? All right, Kathy.
So just like for me, the denial is a good old Southern no. An affirmation for me is what I do declare and how I use the power of my word to lift that thing that is most significant and meaningful to me, or that place where I assess or place value. And so what I thought about this was the question of where do I place my energy? That's what affirmations really illumine for me, is when I start to affirm it, and many of my affirmations start with I am, because I need to declare who I am such that I understand what's before me. Otherwise, what's before me starts asking me questions. Who are you? And I'm like, well, hold on. Give me a minute. I need to declare that before I find myself into it. So for me, it is that declaration of truth. And it's the truth that I absolutely unequivocally, I know it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jim.
Yeah, I'm going to read something really quick, just a sentence or two from Eric Butterworth. An affirmation is not to make a thing true, but to prepare in consciousness the way of releasing what is already an eternal reality in the superconsciousness. So for me, that affirmation is not to change the reality of something. It's not to change the principle of anything, but it is a statement for what I know is true in faith. And I just absolutely know this thing. And we use affirmations in prayer, affirmative prayers and things like that. So Eric Butterworth is spot on. It's not to make a thing true. It is a statement of what we know to be true.
Mhm.
So I love that statement, and I love Eric Butterworth.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes, I'll share. Yes, thanks. I love Eric Butterworth too. But I think that it's, everything that you all have already said, that, it's that positive statement of truth, with that capital T. So I wholeheartedly agree. All I'm really doing is claiming and calling forth, placing the demand on the truth of myself, or all of us, the truth of who we are, those Christed beings, calling forth all of those 12 powers and moving into that I am. And I love that too. And you said that, Kathy, because I do that as well. And I love starting it with the I am, because that reminds me that I'm coming from my Christ consciousness. So I am wisdom. And then I like to put the I am on the back end of it as well. I am wisdom, I am, or whatever it is I'm talking about. But I agree wholeheartedly. It's simply calling forth the truth that's already there, and I'm going to live from that place as best I can. And then I fall off. Then y'all pray for me.
Thank you.
Tracy, you got
Thank
some
you.
ministers in the room. We can pray for you, honey.
Absolutely.
We can all
So
pray
I
for
pulled
you.
I pulled this apart this weekend when I did my service, and I came up with a big piece around faith. And I want to share something that I think comes from the essential Charles Fillmore. God is no respecter of persons. Fulfillment of the law rests within each person when they quicken by faith the spiritual forces latent within them. So we're not creating anything new. It's already accessible. It's already out there. But I really pulled apart faith, because sometimes I think we get heady, we get wordy, and then I think there's an activation piece. So when I defined faith this weekend, it was full activation in the highest. And so activation is our movement, is our aliveness, our quickening spirit. And then, of course, in the highest, you get to decide. Is it your highest spiritual nature? Is it your highest divine good? But I think faith plays a really big role in this affirming what we know to already be true, as if it's already done. As in, which Bible passage says, and if you believe that mountain will move and it is already done, then it's true. Like there's no doubt. It's just actually, it's almost like impact. So when you're activating that faith and believing it to be true, you're already walking in that spirit of an affirmation. You're already declaring it. It's true. It's done. And there you go.
Great. Yes. Thank you. Perfect.
I love everything that y'all have said, and I would say exactly that. So I won't repeat. I will try and pull a different reason or definition of affirmation. And that is that it is the piece of reconditioning our mind. So I said earlier, neuro pathways, every thought we have that we hold in mind has its own routed neuro pathway. And if we are letting go and attempt to lay hold of something new, Paul Hasselbeck wrote in his book, Power Up Your Life, we face it till we make it. And so there's the piece at times where we may not believe it's true yet. We know it's true, but we may not believe it's true yet. And the power of an affirmation is that it done, as like Teresa exampled and Kathy exampled, done properly and repeatedly, unlike the denials, but repeatedly starts to build a new neuro pathway of truth so that we can claim it in the spirit before we know it in the self. And by repeating and repeating and repeating that I am not that, I am this, I am unlimited, I am powerful, I am abundant, I am, then we are creating the groove of truth in our thought process that elevates our vibration and produces outwardly that which we have conditioned and claimed inwardly. So we not only feel it for ourselves, but we start to see how powerful we are, how healthy we are, how abundant we are. And everything that we do, everywhere we go, everything we touch rises up. And then you're surprised. Like, oh my God, girl, it was so easy. You would never believe what happened. But haven't you been claiming that? And now you see the belief starting to produce in the activity of our life. So faith it till you make it. That's one thing that sticks with me, and a way that I also use affirmations.
Yep. Great.
So Maggie,
Thank
can
you.
I jump in there real quick? I love what you said, not just the fake it till you make it, but, oh, I'm so surprised. And why are you surprised? You claimed it, you manifested it, you believed it. And so as a minister, I've done 4 celebration of life in the last less than 12 months. I've done 2 baby blessings, and I said, I want to do a wedding. So I walked into our other building today that we're getting ready to demolish, and the our administrative assistant came running across the building to me, and she went, are you available Saturday? There's a wedding. And in my human element, I'm like, oh my God, Saturday, that's no time to prepare. And the other girl looked at me and she went, you said you've done celebration of life, you've done the baby blessings, and you wanted a wedding. So I am doing a wedding Saturday, because why would I be surprised? Right, Maggie?
Yep.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly. Very
I
true.
look at the statement of why would I be surprised? We also find that reference in the teachings of Abraham, that if you know it, there is no room for surprise. It already is.
Yeah, very true. And another aspect of affirmations that, again, I love these discussions because I start to put the pieces together. And with the denials, we were talking about empowerment and ownership. And with the affirmations, we just said with the denials, we are clearing a space and moving something out of the way. So we're creating a void somewhere when we've let go of something or released something. And this affirmation is our empowered, spiritually ownership way of making a choice of what we're going to put back in that space. We're choosing consciously, what are we going to put there? Once we clear the weeds out of the field, what are we going to plant? Once we move the box out of the way, what are we going to carry through there? What's going to take the place where the box was? So it's another aspect of spiritual empowerment and ownership that we choose consciously in our awareness that something is being removed, let go of, denied, set aside, left behind, but you've now created a void. And as we always say, the universe abhors a void. Something's going to rush in. You get to choose. You get to choose what that is. Yeah, wonderful.
Well, Don, that's what happens when a minister has a Saturday off.
There you go. Yeah. Book
Works.
on your schedule. You have to write in personal time, or someone else will fill it in for you. Write in personal, fill it yourself.
I can't wait to hear what everybody has to share this next week, but what got filled in? See, we're creating this space. I can't wait to hear.
Exactly. So here's another, because Charles is so wordy in this book, and I want to kind of pick out some things and clarify it for people. On page 71, Charles says, we can greatly accelerate the formation of the Christ mind in ourselves by using affirmations that identify ourselves with the Christ. And that's kind of what we've been talking about. Using affirmations that identify ourselves with the Christ are making those statements that we already know are in truth, that we know are, we're making statements of principle. So what does he mean by accelerate the formation of the Christ mind? There's a question for our expert panelists. We can greatly accelerate the formation of the Christ mind in ourselves by using affirmations that identify ourselves with Christ. What does that mean to you? Accelerate the formation of the Christ mind.
I'm gonna take a swing at it.
Sure.
How many of you have ever played Monopoly? All right. There's a statement that says, do not pass go, do not collect $200. This idea of greatly accelerating, it is an invitation to go directly to the truth you know. Do not stop. Do not stand still. Do not be distracted, Kathy Beasley, and go direct.
Oh, Kathy, we just lost you.
Okay, I got to say that where my mind went was go directly to jail. Did anybody else go there? That's how I played Monopoly anyway.
Kathy, I think we still lost your voice, your sound.
I'll be back.
Okay.
She's accelerating that dial up.
Yeah, accelerate your internet connection, Kathy.
I love me some y'all.
Okay, we can actually hear you now. We can't see it, but we can hear you.
That's all right. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves while I play.
Sure. Does anybody else want to jump in while we're waiting? While we're waiting for?
So I see that as our alignment with what I'll call God or spirit. And so I love things like accelerate, activation. This is a movement towards. This is not sitting there daydreaming. This is not just being in prayer. It's putting feet behind your words. So I love that.
Yeah, for me, it's the realization. It's a realization of my movement toward my divine self. So, you know, that idea of Christ mind is the divinity that I truly am. I don't always realize it, but it's that movement towards that perfection.
Yeah, I think that for me, it speaks to, like Maggie was talking about, mental tracks in your brain and pathways that you've got this completely human mind full of all of this misinformation and less than perfect thinking, and you're just slowly but surely replacing what's not really perfect or less than perfect with a higher level of thinking and a higher truth principle. And the more that you do that, for me, over time, you're moving towards that higher divinity awareness. You're moving higher into your Christ consciousness, that you're leaving behind your humanness and your thought patterns and replacing them with a higher divinity level of thought patterns, for me, if that makes sense. Anybody else want to chime in?
Would you repeat it again, Dawn? The quote.
We can greatly accelerate the formation of the Christ mind in ourselves by using affirmations that identify ourselves with the Christ. So what does accelerate the formation of the Christ mind mean?
I think this goes back to the power within. So, and this is true when we talk about principle. Like, principle is law that is working whether we participate actively in it or not. You know, just like gravity. Gravity is holding your butt on the couch right now without any permission of yours on your own. So law is at work. When we choose to work with the law, then we are accelerating the development of our Christ mind, our Christ consciousness. So we're not really ever going to be able to deny our humanness. I mean, we can ascend as Jesus did after the Passion. And again, if anyone's there, call me after after class because I want to be your friend. I want to know how you've done it. But it is in the deliberate attention that we choose to place in our life. And I really like what you said, Reverend Dawn, about the void. You know, when we eliminate something like cleaning out your closet, it's spring cleaning, things don't fit, you haven't worn them in a year, and you go and you throw that stuff out, you can leave the void and a bunch of crap's just going to come into your closet, or you can choose to organize it and deliberately select what you place in that closet and have dominion over your space. And that goes for the same space that we occupy in the physical and in our consciousness. So in affirmations, we are pointing our attention deliberately to that which we want to bring in. And Jesus was the master. I mean, if we could reach and maintain that level of consciousness in all aspects, when our friends are dying, when people have leprosy, when
I have no idea. I don't know how.
I don't either. Then we're really doing something, and we are accelerating the development of our Christ mind. That's what it means to me.
Yeah. Teresa, did you want to, I saw your mic was off for a minute. Did you want to add something?
No, I agree with everything everybody's already said. And I think it's just, it made me think about those, the neural pathways that you were talking about earlier, Reverend Maggie, as well as Don, you touched on that as well. And I think that it's just always making that choice to get in alignment with the truth of who we are, knowing that is our destiny. Just lining ourselves back up again. And every time we slip off, we just begin anew. Because we're not going to be the same, right? We're beginning anew.
Yes, it's definitely a process for sure. Absolutely. I don't see Kathy coming back on. Does anyone have any other questions or comments about that concept?
Yeah, let me mention one thing. So for me, what Charles is saying is that we're going to get there. That's not the question. He's saying this accelerates the process. So it's not that we doubt that we are making progress in life, but that affirmations accelerates this process. And that gives me a lot of hope. That gives me a lot of, hope. Yeah, it gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I didn't look at it that way. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Accelerate the path that we're already on, because we're definitely on it.
Yeah, can I say one more thing while I've got the square? Well, I've got the yellow line around my Brady Bunch square. Is that I am really enjoying this time tonight. First of all, because I've heard so many y'alls tonight that I'm feeling a yearning to go south of the Mason-Dixon once again. But I appreciate that. So thank you for all the y'alls out there.
Wait, I just want to say, because Jim, we all were in school together. So you and Lisa come on down. You just take my platform and I'll go on vacation. I'm in Florida, honey. You know where I am.
You're not going to go
tell her hello. I saw her earlier.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she dropped off. Yeah.
You could do the circuit.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So any questions? Anybody else got any more comments? We've got time for maybe one little brief question that I'm going to throw out. Okay. So Charles says, kind of on a big picture level, every thought creates vibration in the universal ether that ultimately produces itself in visible form. Every thought creates a vibration in the universal ether that ultimately produces itself in visible form. Why do you think he included that statement in this book in particular?
Because it's serious. I mean, I think Charles lived in his head and prayed 12 hours a day and reaped great reward in his level of consciousness and his health and what we are all sitting here talking in his legacy of teaching. And I think if he was sitting around here right now, around the table, he would say, this matters. You know, the details matter. I find myself saying that a lot lately. It's not broad brush thinking. It's that every thought counts, and how we spend our thought energy matters, and it's serious. And if we put in the context of their time, of the Fillmores and their upbringing, they were at a tilt in consciousness also. We just picked up the ball and we're carrying it forward 120 years. And right now, in where we are in humankind and in consciousness and development on a global level, our thoughts all count and they all matter. So if we want to see the change in our lifetime, then we have to cut the crap. We have to stop, you know, giving to this low underbelly, these low vibrational thoughts, this old stuff, the old, call it patriarchy or governmental rule or separation or lack and equality, all of those things that we are just sick unto death of. If we're done with it, then we have to be done with it. And it all matters in what we hold between our two ears. And Myrtle Fillmore would say that we have a million problems, and every single one of them we have created between our ears. And with that same power, we have the ability to correct it. We have the ability at any time to course correct in an intention of creating that which we want to experience. So I think he would say it matters.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Jem?
If nothing else, Charles Fillmore, well, we consider Charles Fillmore a mystic, but for himself, he considered himself a researcher, but he also a self-styled scientist as well. So yeah, he repeated this concept 25 times in all of his different writings, right? This was important to him. The idea that the vibration that we create with thoughts, with our voice, with our being, is that creative power was central to him. So I think he was kind of cutting edge with the idea that the universe is not physical, but is energy. I give him a whole lot of credit for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to say, when I'm reading Charles, to me, he's a lot more Christian than I am, you know, old-fashioned kind of Christian, actually. And so Jesus is the manifested thought of God. And he was all about the teachings of Jesus and spreading it. And Charles was about spreading it. So that's another way that I look at this. However you worded those words, Don, that the thought of the image and likeness of God is a thought manifested through God into a manifestation. And that would be what we might call Jesus the Christ.
Great. Thank you. Teresa?
I'm just going to echo the great takeaway. I think that, you know, just what Maggie was saying there, that, you know, and it reminds me of our principles, right? Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind.
Right.
So it does all matter. Thought, word, deed, everything is adding to the big cosmic soup, if you will. So what kind of soup do we want to make? Something that tastes really good and delicious and is wonderful for all, you know, but I think I think the big point is that sometimes we can be dismissive, like as if this little action or whatever it is doesn't really matter. I think the big takeaway is that yes, it matters. It all matters, and it has an effect.
Right.
So
exactly.
What do we want to create?
Yeah. Kathy, do you have any final thoughts?
I think that my parting thought would be, you know, what we take from this experience together in understanding that what we call important, that place where we put our energy, where we place value, that those are the things that sustain us. Teresa, thank you for the imagery of soup. Because the story of stone soup, where the person went door to door asking, do you have it? And she was denied. So an act of faith, I call it. She went to the town square and started to boil some water and put some stones in it. And out of that, when people noticed that something was brewing, they brought what they had. And I think that conversations like this is something that's brewing. And the fact that you all are here this evening, you're bringing your consciousness, you're bringing your presence, and that adds to the bounty of what is. And I think that, again, Charles is just saying, come on, it's an invitation. Bring what you got.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he speaks to the individual power that we all have, because he says if every thought creates a vibration in the universe that ultimately presents itself, then every thought, yours, not just world leaders, not just industry leaders, not just the Dalai Lama or the Pope or some head of a mega church or some priest or rabbi or Aman, every one of your thoughts, that's how much you have the exact same power as someone you would consider a world leader on some stage, some scientist, some world thinker, whatever. You have the exact same power with your thoughts that they have. And I think he speaks to that with this too, that every single one of us needs to pay attention. That's why watching our thoughts, being aware, using these denials and affirmations to correct and uplift our thinking is so important, because we all have the exact same capabilities and power. I think that's just absolutely outstanding. Great. So with
That
that,
deserves an amen, Don. That's an
amen.
amen.
And the people said amen. So we're just about out of time. So any final thoughts or questions from anybody that's participating that they want thrown up? Myra?
This has been amazing tonight for me. I'm still young and understanding and getting acquainted with unity, but your rich discussion has broadened, challenged my old mental models and given me an opportunity to want to be much more deliberate and being conscious regarding my thoughts and being empowered to discard. It's very hard to discard some of those old beliefs and things I have held on to. So thank you very much for challenging me spiritually. I thank each of you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You are so welcome. Okay, so before we leave, I just want to remind everybody, if you're going to tithe on this class, to do a love offering, do it to your home church in whatever format you normally do that. For our CCU people, just if you're doing it online, just pick classes and workshops from the fun drop-down menu. But however you all tithe to your home churches, please feel free to do it that way. And I'm going to ask, since I opened in prayer, do one of our ministers want to close us in prayer?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, great.
So we could just take a moment and feel the presence of the one power that is active in our lives. And with the spirit of gratitude, we recognize and honor each of these souls that have come together to enrich our journey, expand our awareness, and make it possible to reach deeper within, to connect with that truthful presence that is the origin of our being. So let us take this knowledge forward in our consciousness and our thought and our activity and actions of our lives this week, and be in the awareness and recognition of how we are powerful indeed, and the blessings that are bestowed in our life, on our path, and everywhere we look in accordance with this divine law. So for that truth, for that knowing, and the opportunity to be together with each one of you this evening, I am so grateful. And so I simply say, thank you, God, for all that is and all that ever will be, for it is good. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, God.
All right. Thank you, everybody.